Hello, welcome to CGTN. This is a special live coverage on China's first manned space mission in nearly 5 years. Authorities will soon brief the press on the upcoming launch of the Shenzhou 12 spacecraft. It's part of China's effort to build its own space station by the end of next year. 3 astronauts will head to the Tianhe core module of the station, which was launched late April. They'll spend 3 months there to help build the station. The Shenzhou, which means divine vessel, will be lifted off on a Long March 2F rocket. This will be the third of 11 launches China has planned to build a space station. We'll go live to a Jiuquan Space Launch Center in northwest China to hear from the authorities. That's also where the launch will take place. Here in our Beijing studio, we're joined by Mr. Xu Yansong, Director General of the Asia Pacific Space Cooperation Organization, for more insights. But first, let's cross live to our reporter Liu Jiaxing in Jiuquan Space Launch Center. Hello, Jiaxing. Tell us more about the agenda this morning.
Yes, Brandon. So the conference about this mission will kick off soon in about a few minutes. And I am as excited and as curious as you are, as everybody else, because last week we know that the combination of China's Long March 2F rocket and the Shenzhou 12 spacecraft has been transferred to the launch pad at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center, which gives us the information that this launch date is pretty close now. And for now, all the systems are in place and engineers are doing their final tests to make sure that everything's good to go. So according to the previous released news by China Manned Space Engineering Office, that 3 astronauts will be sent into orbit for 3 months. Well, that's a long time, and it definitely comes with more new missions, more challenges. And in terms of the detailed information on who they are and how long exactly are they gonna spend in the space station Tianhe, and of course what exactly are they going to do and how are they going to cope with the situation, which is totally different from the Earth. So I'm pretty sure the answers will be unveiled from today's press conference. And but this is not the key point, because this is the third of the mission that China planned to have its Tiangong space station completed its construction by the end of 2022. So their key mission is to, do some maintenance and replacement of the equipment at the Tiangong station. So with the previous launch of the core module Tianhe and the cargo ship Tianzhou, these previous launches have laid a good foundation to welcome their first batch of guests to space. So for the more detailed information, I'm excited to learn from today's news presser, and I'll definitely give you a wrap up in about an hour. So see you soon, Pandong.
Thank you very much. Keep us updated. Our reporter Liu Jiaxing at Jiuquan Space Launch Center in northwest China. As Jiaxing just mentioned, as the operational teams conduct final checks, let's look at key features of this mission.
The Shenzhou 12 spaceflight is China's first crewed mission to the Tianhe core module of the country's space station in low Earth orbit. It will blast off from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwestern China's Gobi Desert. Bearing it into space will be the latest Long March 2F carrier rocket. On board will be 3 men, selected from the country's first and second batches of astronauts. They will be the first team to be stationed in the Tianhe module, and they will stay there for 3 months before returning to Earth in September. During their time in space, the trio will conduct a series of technical tests, such as repairs and maintenance and adjustments to appliances and payloads. Some of their work will be outside the module, for which they will wear the spacesuits recently delivered by the Tianzhou 2 cargo spaceship.
The task for the crew is to verify some key technologies for the space station in orbit. A total of 2 Tianzhou cargo spacecraft and 2 Shenzhou spacecraft will be launched to complete all verifications. The first group will stay for 3 months, and the second group for 6 months for all verifications. After that, they will evaluate whether it's ready for the next stage of construction.
The launch of the Shenzhou 12 crewed vessel will be the third of 11 missions planned by China to complete the construction of its space station by the end of 2022. So far, the first 2 missions have been completed. the Tianhe core module was sent into orbit on April the 29th, and the Tianzhou 2 cargo spacecraft was launched on May 29, docking with the Tianhe core module about 8 hours after takeoff.
Now let's take a look at the official logo of the Shenzhou 12 mission. The number 12 is prominently featured at the top, while the spacecraft is shown below, docking with the Tianhe core module and the Tianzhou 2 cargo ship. And earlier we talked to Zhou Jianping, the chief designer of China's manned space engineering project. He shed some light on the space station. Take a listen.
Let's talk about scale first. To be precise, the three-module combination of our space station is more than 60 tons. When it docks by the manned spacecraft and cargo spacecraft, the weight is more than 90 tons. It's nearly 100 tons. Of course, as our space station continues to be used in the future, we will also transport equipment to it, and the scale will increase. The level of recycling is very high. I mean, not just water and urine. What's more important is we collect carbon dioxide and then later react with hydrogen we get by electrolyzing water. This produces methane and oxygen. We then get a considerable amount of oxygen, and this way, we have a closed-loop resource to draw upon, which can greatly reduce dependence on ground supplies and, of course, improve the economic efficiency of the space station. The second technology is robotic arms. We're building a large space structure. For example, if our experimental module is docked with the core cabin, we need to transfer it to the docking position. We have two types of robotic arms. One is called a transposition mechanism. In addition, we also have a more powerful robotic arm with 7 degrees of freedom, which can also accomplish this task. The space station actually has a third robotic arm which can perform finer operations. There is another very important feature. We can combine the large and small robotic arms to form a combined arm, which has a working radius of up to 15 meters. Our energy system, the photovoltaic system, has a photoelectric conversion efficiency of more than 30%. The quality of the power supply capacity per unit should be much higher than that of other space stations. The space station has developed flexible large-scale solar cells and corresponding energy systems, including the rotating mechanism, and the scale should be unprecedented in China. We also have an electric propulsion system, and the one we use is not often used by low-orbit spacecraft. Its characteristic is that its specific impulse is very high. The specific impulse is the total impulse you get by consuming a unit of propellant. Electric propulsion is 1,600 seconds or even higher, which is 5 times higher than traditional propellants. The spacewalk will be different from the past. That is to say, the construction of our space station depends on astronauts completing a large number of complex activities outside the cabin. Therefore, the requirement for the astronauts' ability in spacewalk is much higher. We will arrange multiple space flights during this stage. A standard spacewalk will last 6 to 7 hours to complete the task. Efficiency is very important. Of course, safety is also very important. We have made new improvements to the spacesuit to meet the needs of the space station, which will allow astronauts to work more efficiently. On the ground, we have different training equipment for spacewalks. Training is a prerequisite to ensure the task can be successfully completed. Based on our experience, although there is a difference between ground training and spacewalks, if it can be done in the training, it can be done above in space.
For professional insight, let's talk to Mr. Xu Yanzong, the Director General of the Asia-Pacific Space Cooperation Organization. So as an industry insider, Mr. Xu, are you excited about the upcoming manned space mission?
Yes, very much excited, as we hadn't had this mission for a few years, and we see an international community that is very frequently traveling to the International Space Station. We envy that, and also we're looking forward to the Chinese mission. Of course, this mission had a hiccup because of the launch vehicle problem a couple of years back. The Long March 5 has been the major transporter for us to access to space, and the Chinese space station is built to that diameter. The 5-meter diameter Long March 5 is the working horse. for putting the space station out into the outer space. So we have resumed the flight of the Long March 5, and that is why we have very intensive flight schedule for the building and construction of the Chinese space station.
Since you mentioned the carrier rocket, I believe this time it will be launched on the Shenzhou 12 will be launched on a Long March 2F rocket. So what's the difference? Is that due to the payload of the vessel?
Exactly. We do have 3 or 4 varieties that, of launch vehicle that will be used for construction of the Chinese space station. The Tianhe, which is the core module, which has been launched a couple of months back, was a 5-meter diameter payload of more than 20 metric tons. And that requires the biggest launch vehicle, Long March 5. And also, the cargo ship was also launched, but it was used by Long March 7. So that is because of the cargo size, and that is because of the convenience of the rocket and orbit. And for the manned spaceflight mission, we use more a reliable launch vehicle, which is Long March 2F. That has been proven to be 100% success so far for manned missions and experimental missions. So that launch will be using the third, or maybe what we call the first launch vehicle, the Long March 2F. And that is dedicated to manned mission, manned capsule.
So, of course, as you just mentioned, this is China's first manned space mission in almost 5 years. But let's remember, more importantly, it's China's first manned mission to its own space station under construction. How challenging is this for the first time?
It is unprecedented. I think there are a number of new technologies that we're using on the new, let's say, new Chinese space station. It is the first time we're building one, and we know there are a number of systems involved in the space program, including the launch vehicles. That's, of course, it's the basic part, and also the space segment, which requires very sophisticated engineerings. And there's a life support system which needs to be validated by this mission that is capable of accommodating 3 or more astronauts, maybe 6, up to 6, once it's in a transition period. And its life support system also has to be extended to the future arms of the station. Let's say Wentian and Mengtian. Those segments will be launched also in due course and in connection with the Tianhe segment. So the whole system has to work very perfectly to support the life on board the mission. And also we have to cope with the radiations, the space debris, and the deviation of the orbit and everything. So it is very challenging also to the ground crew, because we have to keep an eye 24/7 on the station, because we have life and death on board. So and also we have to monitor the astronauts' health conditions, and we also have a total ground support system to do that for TT&C purpose, for avoiding space debris and many other, let's say, harmful radiations and solar activities. And there's another system that needs to be done, which is the scientific payloads. The astronauts has the mission to do on board, and also to record and report back the scientific results, which is, of course, the purpose of the mission.
So sounds like quite a lot of tasks at hand with those astronauts for this mission. But talking about payload, as you just mentioned, we've already got a Tianzhou cargo vessel docked with the core module. But this time the payloads will be mainly 3 astronauts. Will they carry extra payloads like scientific equipment or life supporting material?
I think life supporting would be the main part, because we have to make sure that we survive before we thrive. So onboard missions...
Right, as we're talking about this, let's cross live to Zhou Chuan. The press conference on this mission is about to start. That was the press conference on China's first manned space mission in nearly 5 years, and also the country's first manned space mission to its own space station under construction. So it's official now. The Shenzhou 12 mission will be launched at 9:22 a.m. Beijing time on June the 17th. That's a Thursday. 3 astronauts will go to China's own space station this time, and they are Nie Haisheng, Liu Boming, and Tang Hongbo. Nie Haisheng is the commander of the mission. Now, for more insight, let's talk to Mr. Xu Yansong in the studio. So, Mr. Xu, what do you make of the combination of this time's 3 astronauts?
Well, I think it's one well-experienced astronauts had 2 flights already taken, and including the second flight, second manned space flight, the Shenzhou 6. So that was very.
I believe you're talking about Mr. Nie Haisheng, the commander, right?
Nie Haisheng, yes. He's the one who's going to command the ship, and along with 2. Let's say newcomers, and one is have 1 flight, and then another.
Liu Boming had 1 flight. That was Shenzhou 7, right?
Shenzhou 7, and there's another newcomer. So we have a good combination of 3 men, and I see also very interesting backup plan for the crew. There was also Wang Yaping on the second batch. She did a good teaching last time, so it was a good publication. Also, I think the astronauts are considering the education and publication as one important perspective for the mission. So along with the construction as a priority of the crew, I think 3 crew would do a good job in 3 months in good preparation for the upcoming cargo ship, as well as the segments that is going to be integrated to space, to the Tianhe segment. So the construction, as I said, life support, a sustained life support system is very important to validate and to make sure that it has enough supply of oxygen and water supplies and water recycles, urine recycles, and as well as toxic materials, the eliminations, and good air qualities and good water qualities. And 3 bedrooms are able to accommodate the crew to sleep on board. So it's a good size, and it's so far, as the press conference mentioned, that we also have a good efficiency, good communications, and good power supplies. And thanks to the highly efficient solar panels, we have 30% convertible solar powers that can supply the station with good solar powers, and also experimental electric propulsion system that also can support the alleviation of the orbit of the space station. So space station is in good condition, and it's in a circular orbit with good inclinations and ready for the rendezvous docking of the Shenzhou 12.
Besides that, from the press conference, we've also got quite some new features of the Shenzhou 12 spacecraft, and we'll be talking about that very soon with you, Mr. Xu. Now, it's nearly been 5 years since China's last manned space mission. This time, China is sending a crew of 3, Nie Haisheng, Liu Boming, and Tang Hongbo, on a 3-month visit to its space station. They will take off Thursday on the Shenzhou 12 spacecraft, as we just reported. Now let's take a closer look at the astronauts this time.
This will be the 3rd time for Nie Haisheng to blast off. Nie was one of China's first astronauts in 1998. He has carried out 2 missions since then. In 2005, Nie was a flight engineer on the Shenzhou 6, China's 2nd manned spacecraft. The trip lasted just under 5 days. 8 years later, on the Shenzhou 10, Nie was back in Earth's orbit, commanding a 3-member crew on a 15-day trip. During this mission, Nie performed the manual docking operation with China's experimental space lab Tiangong-1. 55-year-old Liu Boming was also among China's first batch of astronauts. He was selected as a member of China National Space Administration in 1998. Liu, along with Zhai Zhigang and Jing Haipeng, was on board Shenzhou 7, which was launched in 2008. Shenzhou 7 was China's 3rd manned space flight, also the country's first to have a 3-person crew. Liu helped Zhai complete China's first spacewalk and handed Zhai a Chinese flag. 46-year-old Tang Hongbo will make his space debut with Shenzhou 12. After graduation from aviation school, Tang became an Air Force pilot in northwest China's Xinjiang. He was later promoted as the leader of the flight brigade. In 2010, he was selected into China's 2nd group of astronaut candidates. In 2016, Tang became a backup astronaut during the Shenzhou 11 launch. And now he will realize his space dream with Shenzhou 12 to help China build its own space station.
Well, Mr. Xu, we've just taken a close look at the three astronauts. Actually, it just came to my knowledge that before this launch, those astronauts had to take at least 6,000 class hours of training. Give us an idea of the intensity of this kind of training.
Well, this training includes the operation of the station, the technical know-hows, and the emergency handling of cases, including fires and many other disasters, and avoidance of space debris. And also the training this time, I think, is more dedicated to the new technologies and new equipments that's on board this mission, including a number of EVAs and the operation of the robotic arms. So you see a lot of divings by the astronauts. That is the simulation. The swimming pool can actually simulate the microgravity environment in outer space, where once you're in a spacesuit, you feel very clumsy and it's difficult to handle normal materials and especially operate subtle details. So training is necessary for EVAs, for assembling the station, as well as the operation of the station as well. So and communication with the ground crews. You know that we can do TTNC operation of the station basically over 90%, but we need the astronauts to do the final 10%, which is more important, and it's not accessible by the ground. And the operation in outer space, microgravity environment, is more challenging rather than people on the ground. So you need a lot of simulations, you need a lot of trainings for operation inside and outside the station.
Also, you need a veteran in space to conduct such a historic and delicate mission. Thank you very much, Mr. Xu Yansong. And within an hour, CGTN will continue this special live coverage on China's Shenzhou 12 manned space mission. The three astronauts, Nie Haisheng, Liu Boming, and Tang Hongbo, will meet the press before the departure for the Tianhe core module, which is already in low Earth orbit and ready for that historic moment. And do stay tuned, and we'll keep you updated on this great progress in China's space program. That's it for this special live coverage on CGTN. I'm Pan Deng in Beijing. See you soon.